Hi, welcome back. So now we're at the stage of working out the idiosyncrasies of lids for this form. Here is a finished lid. So I'm starting with a large lump of clay like this that I'm going to throw on the hump. Then this is the form that I have removed. It was thrown like this. I will remove this off the hump. I will let this set up and dry. Then I trim off this outer area until I get to the soft inner core, and then I pull this clay up from the soft inner core, resulting in, John can pan over here to see some of the vessels, and there's a variety of different styles of lids on these same vessels. Alright, so let's throw a lid. I'm going to throw this on the hump. Throwing the hump is just using a large foundation of clay that you can throw multiples off of. It's a production pottery technique that can be extremely efficient. Also, there are some forms that you might find that are much easier to throw if they're elevated up off the wheelhead a little bit. So this is the clay from which I'm going to throw a lid. It's on center. Now the trick to making lids that don't crack, I learned this the hard way. Take your index finger, sink it down into the top, and rock your finger back and forth, compressing downward, making a concave round bottomed form. Don't make a flat bottomed form, because the percentage of pieces with a flat bottom as a lid that are going to crack is very, very high. So I'm just rocking it back and forth, compressing it. This is my form from which I pull my lid. So now I'm going to grab this clay down here and I'm going to pull it outward. Clearly you can see I'm using a lot of clay and I'm going to end up trimming off a fair amount. And what happens when you do this technique, you have two different rims, which is just perfect because we're going to cut at an inner angle the top rim to create the insert. So first, before I go any further, I'm taking this tool to give myself an idea of how much I need to compress inward for the insert. I'm doing just fine. So now I'm going to bring this out a little flatter. So I'm going to rib it out with my thumb and a sponge into my exterior hand, supporting it just so it doesn't collapse at all, making the lid slightly flatter, but it is still a round bottom. Then I take a rib tool that has a perpendicular edge to it, a clean rib tool, like this. And you see that little ledge that I created? I'm going to compress that ledge inward at an inner angle, like that. So that's my insert for the lid, and this is my rim for the lid. I take my lid master and I go and measure it, and it's slightly too big. So I'm going to rib it inward, that's the insert, maybe another 1/4 of an inch. And just that little bit of a 1/4 of an inch makes the insert much larger. So that's my dimension. That was the dimension of the opening of the vessel. That's going to be the dimension of the insert, which is still slightly too big. I'll do just a wee bit more. That should be good. So now now it's perfect. Now you can see, I'll make a mark. I don't know whether you can see from that angle of the camera, but if you can see that registration mark I've made on the insert, that's the dimension that should equal the tips of this caliper. And you see how the tips of the caliper come right down to that line? So this is perfect dimension to fit into the original wet vessel, because that is when we took that dimension. I'm going to pull this rim out just a wee bit, just a touch. Now, the best way to remove this off the wheel head so I don't get any cracking in the interior is I take a throwing stick, the round end of a throwing stick, and I compress it maybe 1.5 inches below what would be the top of the lid. Then I make an insertion, and in that insertion is where my wire tool is going to go. Another trick that I learned from my mentor are ceramic bisque tiles. To put pieces that you want to evenly dry on ceramic bisque tiles so that the tile absorbs moisture. Slide your wire tool level across underneath in that groove, lift the lid, put it on here, and what happens with this lid is uncovered by tomorrow. This lid will become this, leather hard. Then I will center this, trim this off, and then pull the wet clay up into the handle. So that is similar to this, just slightly different proportions, but this is a day afterwards uncovered. So that's the first stage of lids. Thank you.